Maya Chen stared at the rain hitting her office window on the 32nd floor. The city lights blurred through the water drops like tears she had forgotten how to cry. It was past midnight, and the building was empty except for the security guards downstairs. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. Numbers filled her computer screen, profit reports that would make her shareholders smile tomorrow morning. Maya had built her technology company from nothing. 10 years ago, she was just another graduate with big dreams and empty pockets. Now she controlled a business worth millions of dollars. People called her the Iron Lady of Silicon Valley. She wore the title like armor, protecting herself from a world that had taught her early that showing weakness meant losing everything. Her phone buzzed on the glass desk. Ben Rodriguez, her assistant, had sent another message asking if she needed anything before he left for the day. Maya glanced at the time stamp. He had sent it 3 hours ago. She felt a small pang of something she quickly pushed away. Ben worked harder than anyone in the company, and he had a young daughter waiting for him at home. Yet here he was, still thinking about work at this late hour. Maya typed a quick reply telling him to go home and get some rest. She had learned long ago not to get too personal with employees. Business was business, and emotions only made things complicated. Ben had been working for her for 2 years now, and she knew almost nothing about his personal life beyond the fact that he was raising his daughter alone. She preferred it that way. The rain grew heavier as Maya finally decided to leave the office. The parking garage was dark and quiet, her heels clicking against the concrete floor as she walked to her silver car. She had bought the expensive vehicle last year, another symbol of her success. But sitting alone in the leather seats, Maya felt the same emptiness that followed her everywhere. The roads were slick with rain as she drove through the city streets. Traffic was light at this hour, just a few late-night workers like herself heading home to empty apartments. Maya lived in a penthouse downtown, 15 minutes from her office. She had chosen it for convenience, not comfort. The place was beautiful but cold, filled with expensive furniture that no one ever used. Her phone rang through the car speakers. Maya glanced at the screen and saw her mother's number. She let it go to voicemail, just like she always did. Her mother called every week, but Maya rarely answered. Their conversations always ended the same way, with her mother asking when Maya would settle down and start a family. Maya had stopped trying to explain that she did not need anyone else to be complete. The intersection ahead showed a yellow light turning red. Maya pressed the brake, but the car did not slow down as expected. Her heart jumped as she realized the wet roads had made the brakes less effective. She pumped them again, harder this time, but the car continued sliding forward into the intersection. Time seemed to move in slow motion. Maya saw the bright headlights of a truck approaching from her right. The driver was honking his horn, but there was no time to stop. Maya gripped the steering wheel and tried to turn away from the collision, but the wet pavement offered no grip for her tires. The impact came like an explosion of sound and pain. Metal crashed against metal, glass shattered, and Maya felt her body thrown against the seat belt with tremendous force. The airbag deployed, hitting her face and chest like a giant fist. Everything went white for a moment, then completely black. When consciousness slowly returned, Maya heard voices around her. They seemed far away and unclear, like people talking underwater. Her head felt heavy and painful, and she could taste blood in her mouth. Bright lights hurt her closed eyes even through her eyelids. "Can you hear me?" a woman's voice asked. "You were in a car accident. You are in the hospital now. You are safe." Maya tried to open her eyes, but the effort sent sharp pain through her skull. She could hear machines beeping steadily nearby and the sound of people moving around her room. A man's voice joined the conversation, speaking in medical terms she did not fully understand. "The CT scan shows some swelling," the doctor was saying. "We need to monitor her closely for the next few days. There might be memory issues or confusion when she wakes up. Head injuries can be unpredictable." Maya's mind began to clear despite the pain. She was alive, and from what she could understand, her injuries were serious but not life-threatening. She started to open her eyes to let them know she was awake, but then she heard footsteps approaching her bed. Maya. The voice was familiar and gentle. Ben Rodriguez stood somewhere near her bed, speaking softly. I came as soon as the hospital called. They found my number in your emergency contacts. Maya felt surprised. She had forgotten that Ben was listed as her emergency contact. She had added his name years ago when human resources required it, never thinking it would actually matter. Now he was here in the middle of the night because of her accident. Is she going to be okay? Ben asked the doctor. We believe so, the doctor replied. But head injuries require careful observation. She may be unconscious for several hours or even days. We will know more as time passes. Maya heard Ben pull a chair closer to her bed. She was about to open her eyes and speak when something made her hesitate. In 2 years of working together, Ben had never spoken to her with such genuine concern in his voice. At the office, their conversations were always professional and brief. Maya gave orders, and Ben followed them efficiently. But now, sitting beside her hospital bed, his voice carried a warmth she had never heard before. I should call her family, Ben said to himself quietly. Maya almost smiled despite her pain. Ben did not know that she had no real family to call. Her parents lived across the country and rarely spoke to her. She had no siblings, no close friends, no one who would rush to a hospital in the middle of the night. Ben was probably the closest thing to family she had, and that realization was both comforting and terrifying. A new voice entered the room, much younger and higher than the others. Daddy, is the lady hurt badly? A small girl asked. She will be okay, Lucy, Ben replied gently. Remember what we talked about in the car? Sometimes people get hurt, but doctors know how to help them feel better. Maya realized that Ben had brought his 6-year-old daughter to the hospital. She tried to imagine her own assistant dealing with a work emergency while caring for a young child in the middle of the night. The complexity of his situation had never occurred to her before. Can I draw her a picture? Lucy asked. Mommy used to say that pictures make people feel better when they are sad. That would be very nice, Ben replied. But you need to be very quiet. The lady is sleeping so her body can heal. Maya heard the sound of papers rustling and a small chair being moved closer to her bed. Lucy was settling in to draw while her father kept vigil over his unconscious boss. The simple kindness of the gesture made Maya's chest feel tight with emotions she had spent years suppressing. You know, Ben said quietly, apparently speaking to Maya's unconscious form, I always wondered if you had anyone to take care of you when things got difficult. You work so hard, but you never talk about family or friends. Lucy asks about you sometimes. She calls you Daddy's boss lady and wants to know why you always look serious in the pictures on my desk. Maya's heart began beating faster. Ben had pictures of her on his desk. And his daughter asked about her. These small details revealed a connection she had never suspected existed. I probably should not say this while you are unconscious, Ben continued, but I worry about you sometimes. You stay at the office later than anyone, and you never take vacations. Success is important, but so is having people who care about you. The machines continued beeping steadily as Ben spoke. Maya realized that he believed she could not hear him, that he was speaking from his heart without fear of consequences. For the first time in years, someone was being completely honest with her about who she was and how she affected others. Maya made a decision that would change everything. She kept her eyes closed and her breathing steady, pretending to remain unconscious. She wanted to hear more of what Ben really thought about her life, about the person she had become. Maybe in his honest words, she would finally understand why she felt so empty despite all her success. Outside her room, the storm continued raging against the hospital windows, but inside, Maya lay perfectly still and listened to the truth about herself for the very first time. The next morning brought soft sunlight through the hospital room windows. Maya had spent the entire night listening to the steady beeping of machines and the quiet sounds of nurses checking on her. She had barely slept, her mind too active with everything Ben had said the night before. When she heard his familiar footsteps in the hallway, her heart began racing again. "Good morning," Ben said softly as he entered the room. Maya could hear him settling into the chair beside her bed. "The doctors say you are stable, which is good news. They think you might wake up soon." Maya felt guilty about deceiving him, but she could not bring herself to end the pretense yet. Something about hearing his unguarded thoughts felt too important to stop. "I brought you fresh flowers," Ben continued. Lucy insisted on picking them out herself. She chose the yellow ones because she said they look like sunshine. "She wants you to see something bright when you wake up." The image of a 6-year-old girl carefully choosing flowers for a stranger touched something deep in Maya's chest. She had built her life around the belief that people only cared about what she could do for them. But Lucy had no reason to be kind except genuine concern. "I have to leave for a few hours to handle some meetings at the office," Ben explained. "Sarah from accounting is helping cover your schedule, but there are some decisions only you can make. Do not worry though. Everything important will wait until you are better." After Ben left, Maya opened her eyes slightly to look around the room. Yellow daisies sat in a small vase on her bedside table, exactly the kind of cheerful flowers a child would choose. The room was private and comfortable, with a window overlooking the city she had spent years conquering. From her hospital bed, those tall buildings looked smaller and less important than they had from her office. A nurse came in to check her vital signs. Maya quickly closed her eyes and regulated her breathing to seem unconscious. The nurse was gentle and professional, adjusting Maya's pillows and checking her foreline. "You have a very devoted friend," the nurse said quietly, apparently thinking Maya could not hear. "That man has been here every day since your accident. He even brought his little daughter. Not many people have someone who cares that much." The nurse's words stayed with Maya long after she left the room. Devoted friend. Maya had always thought of Ben as an employee, someone who worked for her because she paid him well. The idea that he might actually care about her as a person was both wonderful and frightening. That evening, Ben returned with Lucy after dinner time. Maya could hear the little girl's excited whisper as they approached her bed. "Is she still sleeping, Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. Her body is working very hard to get better. Sleep helps people heal. Can I show her my drawing?" "Of course. You can tell her about it too. Sometimes people can hear us even when they cannot wake up." Lucy climbed onto a chair beside Maya's bed. Maya could sense the child's small presence near her, full of innocent energy and kindness. "Hi, lady," Lucy said in her sweet child voice. "I made you a picture of our family. This is me and Daddy, and I drew you too because Daddy talks about you all the time. I gave you a big smile because I hope you feel happy when you see it." Maya's throat felt tight with unexpected emotion. This child had included her in a family drawing, giving her the smile that Maya had forgotten how to wear in real life. "Lucy, why don't you color quietly while I talk to Maya for a bit?" Ben suggested gently. "Okay, Daddy. I will make her another picture." Maya heard Ben move closer to her bed. When he spoke, his voice was lower and more personal than she had ever heard it during their working relationship. "I probably should not tell you this while you cannot respond," Ben began, "but working for you changed my life in ways you never knew. When my wife died 3 years ago, I thought my world had ended. Sarah was everything to me, and suddenly I was alone with a 3-year-old daughter, trying to figure out how to be both mother and father to her." Maya's eyes filled with tears behind her closed lids. Ben had never mentioned being a widower. She had always assumed he was divorced or had never been married. The depth of pain he must have experienced, while still showing up to work every day with professionalism and dedication, made her feel ashamed of her own complaints about loneliness. "I was barely functioning when I started working for you," Ben continued. "I took the job because I needed health insurance for Lucy and me. I expected to hate working for someone with your reputation. Everyone said you were cold and demanding, impossible to please. Maya winced internally. She knew her reputation, had cultivated it deliberately as protection against people who might try to take advantage of her emotions. But hearing it described by someone she had come to respect made it sound harsh and unnecessary. But you know what I discovered? Ben's voice grew warmer. Yes, you have high standards and you work incredibly hard. But you never asked me to do anything you would not do yourself. When Lucy got sick last winter and I had to leave work suddenly, you never complained or made me feel guilty. You even sent her a get-well card and a teddy bear. Maya remembered that day. Ben had looked panicked when he got the call from Lucy's daycare about her fever. Maya had told him to leave immediately and not worry about the presentations he was supposed to finish. She had stayed late to complete his work herself, then stopped by a toy store on her way home to buy something for his daughter. She had thought of it as simple human decency, but apparently it had meant much more to Ben. I think you believe you have to be tough all the time because the business world can be cruel, Ben said thoughtfully. But Lucy sees your pictures on my desk and she always says you have kind eyes. Children notice things adults miss. For 2 hours, Ben sat beside Maya's bed and spoke about things he had apparently never shared with anyone else. He told her about the nights he worked late not because she demanded it, but because the office felt like a safe place where he could focus on something other than his grief. He explained how watching her dedication to her company had inspired him to believe he could build a stable life for Lucy. The truth is, Ben said as visiting hours came to an end, I stay late some evenings because I worry about you being alone in that big office. I know you tell everyone you prefer working alone, but I see how tired you look sometimes, how you never seem to have anywhere to go except work. Lucy had fallen asleep in her chair, crayons scattered around her small form. Ben gently gathered the art supplies and lifted his daughter carefully to avoid waking her. I hope when you wake up, you will let people care about you, Ben whispered before leaving. You deserve to have more in your life than just work and success. Everyone needs someone to share their victories with. After they left, Maya lay in the darkness thinking about everything Ben had revealed. She had spent years building walls around her heart, convincing herself that independence meant never needing anyone else. But listening to Ben describe his own pain and healing made her realize that sharing burdens might actually make people stronger, not weaker. The third night, Ben came alone. Lucy was staying with her grandmother, he explained to Maya's unconscious form, so he could stay longer at the hospital. I have a confession, Ben said, pulling his chair very close to her bed. Yesterday I caught you moving your fingers when Lucy was talking. Your breathing changes when you hear certain things. I think you might be more aware than the doctors realize. Maya's heart stopped. Had she been that obvious? She tried to keep perfectly still, barely breathing. If you can hear me, Ben continued softly, I want you to know that I understand why you might want to keep pretending. Sometimes it feels safer to let people think we cannot hear their real thoughts about us. But Maya, if you are listening, I need you to know that everything I have said to you these past few days, I would say to your face when you are awake. You are not just my boss. You are someone I respect and care about as a friend. Maya felt tears leaking from her closed eyes despite her efforts to control them. Ben reached over and gently wiped them away with a tissue. I know you are awake, he said with certainty now. And that is okay. Take whatever time you need. When you are ready to open your eyes, I will be here to listen to whatever you want to say. Maya lay perfectly still for several more minutes, her mind racing. Ben knew her secret, but instead of feeling angry or betrayed, he was giving her space to decide what to do next. His kindness felt more overwhelming than any business challenge she had ever faced. Tomorrow, Maya knew, she would have to stop pretending and face the truth about herself and the relationships she had been avoiding. But tonight, she felt something she had not experienced in years, the comfort of knowing someone genuinely cared about her well-being, regardless of what she could do for them in return. The feeling was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The fourth morning arrived with gentle spring sunlight streaming through the hospital windows. Maya had barely slept, knowing that today she would have to stop pretending and face the truth about everything Ben had shared with her. Her heart felt heavy with the weight of all the emotions she had kept buried for years. She heard familiar footsteps in the hallway, but this time there were two sets. Ben was bringing Lucy with him again. Maya's stomach tightened with nervousness. How could she explain to a 6-year-old why she had been pretending to sleep for days? "Good morning, Maya," Ben said as he entered the room. His voice carried the same gentle warmth it had for the past few days, but now Maya detected a knowing quality that made her realize he was completely certain she could hear him. "I brought Lucy early today because she made you something special," Ben continued, settling into his usual chair. "She worked on it all yesterday evening." Lucy bounded into the room with excited energy, carrying a large piece of paper covered in bright colors. Maya could hear the little girl climbing onto the chair beside her bed. "Look what I made," Lucy announced proudly. "Daddy said you might be able to see it even if your eyes are closed. It is a picture of all the people who love you." Maya's chest tightened with emotion. Love. Such a simple word that she had spent years avoiding and dismissing as weakness. But hearing it from this innocent child made it sound like the most natural thing in the world. "See, this is you in the middle with a big happy face," Lucy explained, apparently holding the drawing close to Maya's face. "And this is me and Daddy holding your hands. And here are all the people at your office who think you are smart and nice." Maya almost smiled despite herself. Lucy's simple view of the world made everything seem possible, even the idea that Maya might deserve affection and friendship. "Can you help me hang it up, Daddy?" Lucy asked. "I want her to see it when she wakes up." Maya heard Ben moving around the room, probably taping Lucy's artwork to the wall. The sound of their quiet cooperation filled her with warmth she had never experienced before. This was what family felt like, she realized. Not the formal, distant relationship she had with her own parents, but this easy closeness and shared care for someone else. "There," Ben said when he finished hanging the picture. "Now she will see it first thing when she opens her eyes." "Daddy," Lucy said in a stage whisper that Maya could easily hear, "I think she is waking up. Her face looks different today." Maya's heart began racing. Children were more observant than adults realized. Lucy had noticed changes that the medical staff had missed. "You might be right, sweetheart," Ben replied softly. "Sometimes people need time to be ready to wake up. Her body has been working very hard to get better." "Can I hold her hand?" Lucy asked. "Mommy used to say that holding hands helps people know they are not alone." "That would be very nice," Ben agreed. Maya felt a small, warm hand slip into hers. Lucy's fingers were tiny but surprisingly strong, holding on with the complete trust that only children possessed. The simple contact broke something loose inside Maya's carefully constructed emotional walls. "Hi," Lucy whispered directly into Maya's ear. "I know you are probably scared to wake up. Sometimes I feel scared too, like when I had bad dreams after Mommy died. But Daddy always tells me that being brave means doing things even when you feel scared. And you do not have to be scared anymore because me and Daddy will take care of you." The innocent sincerity in Lucy's voice shattered the last of Maya's resistance. Tears began flowing freely from her closed eyes, and her hand instinctively squeezed the little girl's fingers. "Daddy, look!" Lucy exclaimed excitedly. She squeezed my hand. "And she is crying. I think she can hear us." Maya heard Ben move closer to the bed. She could feel his presence beside her, warm and reassuring. "Maya," Ben said gently, "I know you are awake. You do not have to keep pretending anymore. Whatever you are feeling right now, it is okay. You are safe here with us." For several long moments, Maya lay perfectly still except for the tears streaming down her face. The moment felt too big, too important to rush. Her entire life had been about control and strength and never showing vulnerability. Opening her eyes would mean admitting that she needed other people, that she had been wrong about almost everything she believed about relationships. "It is okay to be scared," Ben continued softly. "Change is always frightening, even good change. But you do not have to face anything alone anymore." Lucy was still holding Maya's hand, occasionally patting it gently the way children do when they are trying to comfort someone. The gesture was so pure and loving that Maya felt her heart breaking open in the most wonderful way. Slowly, carefully, Maya opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Lucy's bright, excited face just inches from her own. The little girl had enormous brown eyes full of joy and kindness, and when she saw Maya looking at her, she broke into the biggest smile Maya had ever seen. "Hi," Lucy said happily. "I am so glad you are awake. I was worried about you." Maya tried to speak, but her throat felt dry and rough from days of staying silent. Ben quickly reached for a cup of water with a straw, helping her take small sips until she could find her voice. "Hi, Lucy," Maya whispered, her voice hoarse but clear. "Thank you for taking care of me." Lucy beamed with pride at being thanked for her caregiving efforts. Behind her, Ben was watching Maya with an expression of relief and understanding that made her heart feel full and empty at the same time. "How do you feel?" Ben asked, moving to sit on the edge of her bed. Maya looked into his kind eyes and realized that this was the moment of truth. She could go back to being the cold, distant boss he had known for 2 years, or she could be brave enough to become someone new. Scared, Maya admitted honestly. Confused. And grateful in ways I do not know how to express. Ben smiled, the first completely genuine smile she had ever seen from him. "Those all sound like normal feelings for someone who just went through something difficult." "Ben," Maya said, her voice growing stronger, "I heard everything you said to me while I was pretending to sleep. About your wife, about Lucy, about why you work late sometimes. About me." She watched his face carefully, expecting to see anger or betrayal there. Instead, Ben just nodded calmly. "I figured you could hear me," he said simply. "Especially after the second night when your breathing changed every time Lucy laughed. You are not angry that I pretended?" Ben considered the question seriously before answering. "No. I think you needed to hear those things, and I needed to say them. Sometimes the truth comes out in unexpected ways." Lucy had been listening to their conversation with the intense focus children brought to adult discussions they did not fully understand. Now she climbed carefully onto the bed beside Maya, settling against her side like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Are you going to be our friend now?" Lucy asked with direct child honesty. "Daddy needs more friends. He gets lonely sometimes when I am asleep." Maya looked at Ben, who was blushing slightly at his daughter's straightforward observation. "Is that true?" "Lucy sees everything," Ben replied with a slight laugh. "Yes, sometimes I get lonely. Single parenthood can be isolating, especially when you work as much as I do." For the first time in her adult life, Maya made a decision based on her heart instead of her head. "I would like to be your friend," she said to both of them. "Both of your friends. But I should warn you that I am not very good at it. I have spent so many years avoiding close relationships that I am not sure I remember how to have them." "That is okay," Lucy said matter-of-factly. "Daddy had to learn how to braid hair and make lunches and lots of other things after Mommy died. Learning new things is hard, but it gets easier with practice." Ben laughed, a sound full of warmth and possibility. "Lucy is right. We can all learn together." Over the next hour, the three of them talked more honestly than Maya had spoken to anyone in years. She told them about her lonely childhood, about building her company as a way to prove she did not need anyone else, about the empty apartment she went home to every night. Ben shared more stories about his marriage and grief, about the challenges of raising Lucy alone, about finding purpose again through work and fatherhood. Lucy contributed to the conversation with the wisdom that children sometimes possessed, asking simple questions that cut straight to the heart of complicated adult emotions. When Maya tried to explain why she had been afraid to trust people, Lucy just nodded and said that sometimes she felt scared of new things too, but that Daddy always helped her be brave. Maybe we can help each other be brave, Lucy suggested, taking Maya's hand again. Maya squeezed the small fingers gently, marveling at how natural the affection felt. I would like that very much. When visiting hours ended, Ben and Lucy prepared to leave as they had every evening. But this time, Maya did not want them to go. Will you come back tomorrow? She asked, feeling vulnerable for admitting she wanted their company. Of course, Ben replied without hesitation. We will be here every day until you are ready to go home. And when you get out of the hospital, Lucy added with 6-year-old confidence, you can come have dinner at our house. Daddy makes really good spaghetti, and I can show you my room. Maya smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in years. That sounds perfect. After they left, Maya lay in her hospital bed looking at Lucy's colorful drawing taped to the wall. The picture showed 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun, all of them wearing enormous smiles. It was childish and simple and absolutely beautiful. For 35 years, Maya had believed that strength meant standing alone. But lying in that hospital bed, surrounded by flowers chosen by a 6-year-old and artwork made with love, she finally understood that the bravest thing she could do was allow herself to be cared for. Tomorrow she would start learning how to be someone new, someone who could accept friendship and offer it in return. The thought was terrifying and wonderful, just like everything else about this unexpected chance to begin again. Outside her window, the city continued its busy pace, but Maya no longer felt separate from it. She was part of something now, connected to people who saw her not as a successful CEO or a demanding boss, but simply as someone worthy of love. And for the first time in her life, that felt like enough.